This test is by far the most definitive test you can do to see whether you have combustion gases inside your cooling system where they don't belong. Hey, how's it going, do-it-yourselfers? That's right, today I'm going to show you how you can use this combustion leak tester, aka block tester, to see whether you have combustion gases inside your cooling system. Now to clarify, however, even though these things are called a block tester, or even the fluid that you need to put in this tester called a block test fluid, this doesn't necessarily mean if your engine fails this test, you have a bad block. Failing this test simply means, like we just mentioned, you have combustion gases inside your cooling system. Now there are three ways that can happen usually. The main one is going to be a bad head gasket due to some severe overheating issues maybe. The other one could be a cracked cylinder head, where you have a crack between one of the cooling passages of the cylinder head and the combustion chambers, and that's how combustion gases get into the cooling system. And then the last and the least likely scenario is going to be a cracked cylinder block. Now, a very interesting note and a lesson to be learned is that a lot of times this test is done after people replace a suspected bad head gasket. You know, their car is overheating, maybe they have some oil inside their cooling system, they suspect the bad head gasket, they go and replace it, they put the engine back together, they run the engine, they still have some overheating issues, maybe excessive pressure inside the cooling system, and then they do this test, and this test fails, indicating a possible cracked cylinder head or block. Now, I've gone over how you can avoid that costly mistake in my previous videos, but we'll also go over it at the end of this video. But for now, let's move on to the testing procedure. All right, so first thing you need to do is to start with a cold engine. Then you want to drain some coolant from your radiator. Now, you need to drain enough coolant as to when the engine is warm, and during the testing procedure, when we use this to draw some gases from your radiator into our tester, you don't draw coolant into the tester and contaminate the testing fluid.
That's going to vary from vehicle to vehicle, but I've drained about maybe 3/4 of a quart, something like that.
Of course, if that's not enough, we'll drain some more when the engine warms up. All right, next we're going to start the engine, and of course, like any auction purchased vehicle, we have a very weak battery, so we get our jumper on, then we'll start her up. And now we'll run the engine until we reach operating temperature, all the while keeping an eye on our coolant level, making sure it doesn't overflow. It goes without saying, if you rev the engine, not only you help it warm up faster, but also help dislodge air bubbles or combustion gases that might be stuck somewhere inside your cooling system. All right, now while we wait for our engine to warm up, we're going to fill our tester with block test fluid. We're going to fill it up to this line right here. There we go. We got a little bit more, but that's okay. All right, as you can see, we've reached operating temperature. Now we're ready. So we grab our tester, put on our radiator, and we use this to draw the gases inside the radiator into the tester and mix those gases with our fluid. If this fluid goes from this blue or green or whatever it is to yellow, that means combustion gases are present. Of course, you want to hold this gasket nice and tight. You don't want to be drawing the gases that are outside of the radiator. And you want to keep doing this for, I don't know, keep doing it for like a minute or two. And so far, so good. All right, actually, if you hold this super tight, you're going to be pulling a vacuum on the cooling system, and you can't draw any air because unless there are combustion gases present. So it might be just a little bit loose, so you draw a combination of the air inside the cooling system and the outside air. Otherwise, if you hold this really tight, this will happen, you know. You're not going to be drawing much air. All right, so here's a closer shot. As you can see, it remains blue, which means we don't have combustion gases inside this engine. But now let me show you how this will change if it does detect combustion gases. And for that, we'll go to where exhaust fumes are supposed to be present, which is our exhaust pipe, of course. All right, now let's see if we can do this without inhaling too much exhaust fumes. And I think I can kind of see the color change already. Yep, for sure. Here under the hood with the same amount of lighting where we did the first test, you can see the difference. All right, now if you're in this boat, you're probably saying, hey, that's great. We confirmed we have combustion gases in our cooling system, but what now? Well, you need to figure out why you have combustion gases inside your cooling system before you start digging into your engine, because if you have, let's say, a cracked block, there's no point in spending labor and time taking your engine apart. You're much better off just replacing that engine. Whereas if you have a bad head gasket, depending on what type of engine you have, it might be worth fixing it. And if you have a cracked cylinder head, then depending on your car's engine again, it might be worth getting a used or rebuild one, let's say off eBay, and replacing it, or again, replacing the engine altogether. But as far as how you can narrow it down, well, if you only have one of these guys, here's a trick how you can kind of help narrow where the leak is coming from. All right, now let's say you have an inline 4-cylinder engine. The way you can narrow down where the leak is coming from using one of these is you disable the spark and fuel injector on one of the cylinders. And then again, with the engine warm, you run the engine for a few minutes to get the combustion gases out of your cooling system, hopefully, and then you redo the test. If the test is good, in other words, the blue fluid remains blue, then you found where your combustion leak is coming from. It's coming from that cylinder. And if not, you just go down the list and do the same for the other 3 cylinders. Of course, you reconnect the spark and the fuel injector connectors for that cylinder. You go to the next one, so on and so forth. Now, if you have a V6 or a V8 engine, well, that's going to be a little bit more tricky. You need to disable one bank first, all the spark and fuel on one bank first, then run the engine. It's going to run really rough. And then do the same thing again. So you narrow it down to the bank first, and then you do the same test on that bank and figure out which cylinder is leaking combustion gases into the cooling system. And of course, if you have one of these, you can do a cylinder leakage test. Basically, you put compressed air into each cylinder separately, and if you get air coming out of your cooling system, then you found the culprit. But again, this doesn't tell you what's leaking. So yeah, after you find the suspected cylinder or cylinders, you will need one of these. A borescope. You put this down the spark plug hole and try to see where the leak is coming from. Is it a bad head gasket, a cracked block, or a cylinder head? And then from there, using that info, you can make a better financial decision and decide what to do with that engine. Now, it goes without saying, depending on how much time you have on your hand and your access to the tools we talked about, you can make different choices as well. Let's say you're working on some 4-cylinder engine and you suspect a bad head gasket. You verify that you have, air coming from a suspected cylinder or cylinders to your cooling system by putting compressed air into those cylinders, and then, checking your radiator and see the bubbles coming out. You can go ahead and dig into that engine if you want to. The odds are good it's the head gasket. And, once you remove the head gasket, you can send the head to the machine shop. They'll resurface it and check it for leaks for you. And, you can put it back on and you should probably be okay. Now, a word of caution, if you're working on an engine that has an aluminum block, you got to be careful because aluminum is a softer metal, more prone to, getting cracked if you severely overheat that engine, or warping out of spec where it also needs to be removed and sent to the machine shop to be resurfaced. But most of the time, those are okay too. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, hit that bell notification, check out my other videos in the description box. Also links on this side of the screen in the description box as well. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.